see me now. Yeah. Okay. Second year, third year, first year. Great. Great, 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 great. So we have people from all 3 years of college. That is great to see. I always love interacting with students. It's like one of the most happiest feelings that I have when I interact with students. So today we are going to have a session on Foundation of DSA, right? Some hands-on experience, because we hear a lot of people talking a lot of stuff, but we all know that the real knowledge comes with only hands-on experience. So because we have students from first year, second year, and third year as well, it's going to be a pretty interesting session. Well, I was in the impression that we are going, because of the word foundational, I was in the impression that we're mostly going to see students from first and second year, but it's really good to see people joining in from third year. By the time we get to third year of college, people get to see, I don't need to attend any certain webinar. But I'm still very happy to see people joining in from third year as well. So thank you for joining today's webinar. So without wasting any more time, I think we can definitely move ahead and start coding. What do you guys say? Are you guys excited? Let's hands-on, let's really get into coding. So before we move ahead, just want to ask from you people, what language do you use for coding? What is your preferred language for data structures and algorithms? C++. Okay, C++. Everybody is C++. I see one person Java, a few people writing Python. Okay, then in that case, I'm pretty sure most of you are going to be slightly disappointed with me because I code in Java. And I can see a lot of people coding in C++. So I hope there's not an issue with that. But anyway, if there is an issue, I will try to explain with my knowledge of C++ what I know, because my primary language of coding is in Java. So let's move ahead. In the meantime, I will start sharing my screen. So please let me know when you can see my screen. Yep. Can you see my screen? Can someone please confirm from the chat box? I am opening IntelliJ IDEA on my screen, and this code is basically a project that I was creating by myself. So let's not look into this. This is the package that you can see DSA on my left-hand side, where my cursor is at this moment. So this is the package where, is my screen not clear? Can someone, I can see one person writing, my screen is not very clear. Is it not clear for everyone? You want me to zoom that?
You can better zoom it a bit, so it will be better for us to.
Okay, all right. I'll just make the text size greater. I'm too used to this text size, so that might be the scenario. Just a moment. Where's the font size? Yep. Okay, so this is bigger, right? Now I'll just make this part bigger as well. Where is that thing? Editor. Font size equals to, let's say, 18. Is this font okay with you? The one on the right-hand side? This size? Yeah, okay, great. All right. Now I think you can see the code really clearly, is it? Is it better now? I guess it should be better. All right, great. Okay, so in today's session, we will cover a few questions. So the level of questions will be increasing from, again, like easiest to toughest. So let's start with a very, very easy question. So I'll create a new Java class. And this question is basically to find out whether a given, what is the largest integer in a given array. Okay, so that is the question. And we are going to look at ways of how to get this done. So let's write the name of the class, largest in array. So I'll just write some boilerplate for Java code. Yep. So in Java, we write PSVM, public static void main. And let's take some user input. So we would write scanner, or I'll just take it from buffer reader, buffered new buffered reader. This is just Java boilerplate. This is no logic happening over here. System. One second, I'm not able to see. System.in. So this line is used for taking an input in Java. And I know it's very larger compared to cin, but most of you are used to. But this is how it is. Okay, so moving ahead, let's take an array from the user. So I'll take a string type array first. Str is equals to br.readline dot trim dot split. Okay, this will give me an IO exception type error. Okay, so now I'll just convert this string into an array. So I'll create an integer type array. ARR is equals to new int str ARR dot length. This is just a boilerplate. So those with C++, how to get. This is basically, I'll tell you what I'm doing here. So this line number 10 is basically for taking a user input. So I'm taking a string input from the user. Okay, I'm taking a string input from the user. This string is going to contain integers which are space separated. So this line, bufferreader.read line, is going to take the string input from the user in the console, and I'm separating that using space. Okay, so this is my regular expression. So I'm separating that using space. So suppose if my string is 1, then space, then 2, then it will become a string type array which contains the first element as 1 and the second element as 2. So that is why I'm taking a string type array over here, and then I'm going to convert that into an integer type array over here. So I've created an integer array. Now I will use a for loop, and I will just add it over here. Int I is equals to 0, I less than str_arr dot length, I plus plus. For those who are not understanding, just tell me one moment. I'll explain you how it works. Integer dot percent str_arr I. Yep. So I'll tell you how this is working. So sout is basically a command to print. For those who are not understanding, let me just tell you how it's working. So I'll just debug this application for you to tell you how it's working. Is this whole course in Java? This is not a course, first of all. We're just talking about data structures in Java. That's it. So the concepts that we're going to use, they're going to be the same in every language, no matter what you are doing. It is just the data structures which I am doing it in Java because Java is my language of choice. It can be in your case C++, Python, JavaScript, whatsoever. All right, so moving ahead, just have a look at this debug console. It will show you line by line what is happening. So with this line, like I said, this line allows me to, this is basically allowing my system to take a user input. And this line takes the user input. So suppose if I go into next line and just check here, now it is stopped. Now let me just write the numbers as 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. Like you can see, there are 5 numbers, 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. And each of these numbers are separated by a space, right? And I'm using to separate each of these strings into a string type array over here by writing this Java code. This is the same logic that we also do in C++. C++ also uses dot split function in order to split a string on the basis of a certain regular expression. So that is what is happening here. Please use C++. I'm sorry, Vaibhav, I do not know C++ language, so I can't use C++ even if I wanted to. Java is my language of preference. Okay, so moving ahead, if I just press enter, you can see that this is the array that I have received. strarr is the array which is like this. So 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5. They're all strings. They're all strings. And then using this for loop, I am converting this into a integer type array. So you can see ARR, which is now an integer. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so now this is basically the code for taking our array user input from a user in Java. So this is not exactly DSA part. The DSA part starts now. So now this part will be the same in C++, in Java, in Python, whatever you are using. What ID would you suggest for Java beginners? IntelliJ IDEA is the best. So if your system supports it, I would say definitely go with IntelliJ IDEA. Okay, so now let's write a code to take out the largest number in an integer type array. So our ARR is that array. So now let's just create a function. So I'll create a function public static, let's say int largest GEST number in array, int ARR. Okay, now let's write the code. Okay, so the first way to do this is like we can sort the array absolutely, like in an ascending order or in a descending order. And if we sort it in an ascending order, then don't you think the last element of the array will be the largest number? If we sort the array in an ascending order? Yes, no, anyone? If we have an array of integers, if we sort the array in an ascending order, then we can take out the last element of the array, and that will become our answer. So let's try to do that. Okay, to sort an array in Java, what happens is that we can just write arrays dot sort, and then I can just pass ARR. So this line sorts the array intrinsically. For people who are using C, you can just use, I mean, you have to write a sorting function. For people who write C++, again, there is a function for sorting the array. So that is also what you can use. And then we can take out something like this, return arr dot, arr dot length -1, right? So this will give us the correct answer. And what I can do is that, oops, I can just do this, s out, that is largest number in an array, and I can just pass arr over here. So what this will do is that, so this much code is just for taking the input from the user. And then I am basically writing this code in order to find out the largest element of the array. Sir, please increase the font size of the code a bit. Okay, fine. I'll just increase the font size of the code a little bit more. I think 20 should be good. 20. Okay. So for everybody who's who's having questions, I would personally prefer that you ask in the Q&A. Can you explain the code logic? Can you explain the logic we can code in our language? Can you please change the theme to light? Is that a problem? I don't think the theme should be a problem. I can definitely change it to light, but do you want me to do that? Is that a necessity? I think we can just focus on writing code because I like the theme in dark. So definitely let's move ahead. So this is the logic that we just devised. We thought that maybe we can sort the array and then take out the last element of the array, and that will give us the answer. So let's check whether this logic is working or not. Binal Singh asks me a question: why can't we initialize max and then compare with each element? We can definitely do that, but I want the students to think in a progressive manner. Like, what is an inefficient solution, then what is a more efficient solution? So I think that is a better way of explaining students of how to think in a right direction. All right, so let's move ahead and let's try to run this program to see if it is working. So I am running this program, and let's see what happens. Running this program. So asking the students, you give me an array of integers. Give me an array of integers. I know, Parth, what you're saying is right, and I will do that in just after this solution. Sir, is it int array? Yeah, yes, this is int array. Okay, 13579. All right, so let's take 13579. So 9 is the greatest number of this array. Many companies ask us to write full code for sort and find instead of use inbuilt functions. So do we have to depend more on built-in functions? Well, it depends on what, how complex your program is, how complex program is asked from you. If it is very simple, like the one that I am asking or the one that I am explaining right now, in that certain case, it is better that you write your own sort function. Well, if it, and another case is that if it's a very complicated situation where sorting is required way too often, then in that case, I think you can use what is provided by the language. So then why string array is taken? Well, it is because buffered reader takes a string input. And that's why I'm taking a string array first and then converting into an integer array. So that is my choice. That is how I like to take input. But I think you should not be concerned with this part of the code, because this is a very Java specific part of the code. And because most of you are coming from C++, this is something that should not be bothering. I think you should be focusing on this part of the code because this is more important. All right, so let's move ahead. And this is definitely giving us the answer. But like most of you also suggested me, that if we go with this approach, then there is one problem, and that is that we are sorting the array. And therefore, this approach is going to take larger amount of time because the time complexity will be equal to n log n, as the fastest we can sort is in the time complexity of n log n. Now, there's a better approach to do this, and that is to do it in O of n solution. Now, let me just tell you how we can do that. So I'll just remove this, and I'll show you one logic. So what we can do is that we can basically assume that the first element of the array is the greatest element. We are going to assume this, that the first element of the array is the greatest element of the array. Then we can traverse through the entire array and check for every element that whether the current element where we are traversing right now, is it greater than the current maximum element? If it is greater than the current maximum element, then we are going to update the current maximum element. If not, then we can just continue. So in that case, let me just do one thing. So I'll just create int maximum element is equals to ARR0. So this basically means that I am going to take the first element as the greatest element of the array. Okay, so that is done. Now let's write a for loop. So I'll write a for loop from int I is equals to, let's say 1, and I should be less than arr.length, then I plus plus. Okay, and then I'm going to check, or I don't even, what I can do is that I can just write if arri is greater than maximum element, then maximum element is equals to arr of I. This is what we can do. Okay, once this is done, we can just return the maximum element. Now let's see if this is going to give us the correct answer. We're going to go with the same string that we have 13579. So I'll just run the program one more time and see what's the answer. Paste. Okay, 13579. Yep, we get 9 again. So in this case, this is a better way to solve this problem. Okay, now this is actually a more intrinsically better way to solve the problem, because this is going to take lesser time compared to the previous approach that we had. The previous approach was taking the time complexity of n log n, because we were sorting the array. But now we are not sorting the array. We are just going through the for loop in order to solve this entire problem. And it is going to take only O of n units of time in order to have the entire problem solved. Okay, so I see many professionals use buffer reader, while I think scanner class is easy. Is there any specific reason to use buffer reader over scanner? So buffer reader actually uses a streamline input, so it has a byte stream type of conversion. So that is why it is more efficient compared to scanner. And buffer reader is a standard way of taking input in Java. It is also faster than scanner. Maybe we can use STL function in competition, or we can O function code for placement round. Maybe I'm right. Yes, you're right. What if two numbers are equal? Well, in that case also, it is, if two numbers are equal, then that should not do any certain scenario, right? If two numbers are equal, then how does it make a difference? It doesn't really make a difference. Like, for example, I'll just show you. So if I run this code again, let me just write 5 5 5 6 6 6 8 8 9 and then 10. So in this case, we all know that the 10 is the greatest number. It doesn't really matter if there are equal numbers in the array. It doesn't really matter. Okay, any confusion on this question? The first question for today. Was it easy to understand? Or is there any question, why am I doing what I'm doing, etc., etc.? It's clear, right? If it's clear, just write yes. Yeah, this one was an easy one. All right, great. Now we just had a question from array, right? Now let's try to solve a question from strings. Let's try and solve a question from strings. So I'll just go to DSA folder. We'll create a new Java class. Let's try reversing the words in a string. Reverse words. Parth is asking me a question, which sorting algorithm to use when? Can you brief us, sir? Well, when it comes to sorting algorithm, you must always use either merge sort or heap sort, because it is the fastest one. What is the maximum number is repeated? Then which index will be printed? Well, in this case, I am not using the index. In that certain scenario, it doesn't really matter. Well, based on the code that I have written, the index of the number which comes first will be printed. All right, so moving ahead, let's try to reverse the words in a string. So for example, if the string is something like this, my name is Shantanu, then I must get the output as, then I must get the output as something like this, Shantanu is name my. This is what I should get. Okay, so let's try to find out the solution for this. So I wrote a public static void main, and I will take a user input again. So I'll just write buffer reader is equals to new buffer reader system, no, new input string reader system dot in. This will throw an IO exception, throws IO exception. Okay, now let's move ahead. Let's take a string input from the user. So if we take, there's something wrong with my I missed semicolon. Okay, so let's take a string input from the user. So string input string is equals to buffered reader dot read line. So this line will just take the input string from the user. I'll just trim it also so that there are no trailing spaces. Trim. Okay, so now we have this string from the user. Now we'll create a function which basically reverses this string. So let's try to create that function. So I'll write public string. No, I forgot the static public string reverse string words string input string. Okay, so let's move ahead and let's try to look at how to do this problem. Okay, so now we know that if we have a string like this, and we want to reverse the words, so we don't want to reverse the entire string. We don't want something like UNATNAHS space SI. We don't want that. We just want the words to be reversed in their order. So in this case, don't you think that if we can convert this entire string into an array, and just reverse that array, our problem is solved? Don't you think we can do that? Anyone? Yes, no? Right? We can do that, right? So that's what we will do. So for that, let me just convert this into an array first. I'll just write string str or is equals to str dot input string dot split with space. So this will split my entire string on the basis of space. So this will make it an array, right? So it will become an array of 1, 2, 3, 4 of size 4. The first element will be my, second element will be name, third element will be is, and fourth element will be Shantanu. Okay, so moving ahead, let me just take out the length of the array. So int length is equals to input string dot length. So now we have this also. Now let's try to swap. Now we will, what we basically do is that we will iterate through this array, this str_arr that we have. We will iterate over this array. We will only iterate over up to length by 2 size. That is, if there are 10 words in this array, we will only iterate up to 5 times. With every time we are at a certain element, we swap it with the last element from the same index. That is that if we are at the second element, then we swap the second element with the second last element in this array. So if that is what we will do, our answer will be found. So that is exactly what we are going to do. So what I'm trying to do is that I will keep an index of where I'm starting from. So I'll write first is equals to 0. And then I will also keep an index of where I'm ending from. So what is my last limit? So last is equals to length minus 1. So this is the last index, right? This is my last index. And I'll calculate the mid also. So mid is equals to length by 2. This is my length. Now I will write a while loop. So I'll write a while loop. Then I will write if until first is less than equal to last, less than equal to mid, and last is greater than equal to mid. Until this is the scenario, that means that we are trying to kind of iterate up to the middle element only. So until these 3 scenarios are happening, we will make a swap into a string array, and we will swap the first and the index, the element of the array which is at the index first and the one which is at last, and then we will increment first plus plus and last minus minus. Okay, and in the meantime we'll also create a swap function. So swap function is easy to create. Public static void swap. Then we will write string arr int I and then intj. Here what we can do is that we can just write string, a temporary string. Temp is equals to what should we write? arr I, right? Then we can write arr I is equals to arr j, and we can write arr j is equals to 10. Right? So this is our swap function. This is our swap function, and this is what I have called here. Okay, so now our array has been reversed. Now that our array has been reversed, we'll have to create a new string. We will have to create a new string. So what we can do is that we can create a string, let's say output string, which is a empty string by default. Okay, then we can iterate over the entire new array that we have. I is equals to 0, I is less than equal to str arr dot, which will be length only, length, then I plus plus. Okay, then what we can do is that we can write output string is equals to output string plus output string plus this plus output string, not this, output string plus what is that thing called, input string I, right, plus a trailing white space. Okay, and then we can just return, yes, I think we can just return the output string. So what I did here is that up to this point, I swapped all the elements up to middle part, that is length by 2. I swapped all the elements. So this entire while loop reversed my entire array. So our array was reversed. Now we want to concatenate all the elements of this array into a proper string. That is what we want to do. And that is what we are doing. So what we did exactly was that we reversed this entire array. We reversed the entire string array. And then we are concatenating every element. We are concatenating every element of the reversed array with the correct in the output string, and that is what we are returning. That is why we are returning output string. So now let's see if this is working. In the meantime, I will just print this s out reverse string words input string. Okay, now let's try to run it up. Run. So it's running. Now let's write my name is Shantanu. Oops, there's a mistake in my code. Let me just check what is the mistake. Okay. There's a mistake in my code. Can someone help me find out the mistake? It is coming in 37, that is over here. At line number 18. Line number 18, which is over here. Okay. So it is coming over here. All right. Let me just see what the issue can be. Mid is equals to last by 2. Last by 2, no, that's not true. It should be equal to length by 2, which is correct. So let me just check there has to be one very small mistake that I have done. Output string is equals to instead string of definition in a loop. Okay, I can use that as well. Package problem, I guess. No, it's not. It's not a package problem. I guess I'm doing a very small mistake. I'm not able to find that out, but I will be able to find it out. Let's just give me one moment. First, it should be less than equal to mid, and last should be equal to. Okay, let me just debug it and see what is happening. So yeah, let me just debug it and see what is happening. So I'll just debug it up, debug, and I'll just go. My name is Shantanu. So, oh, I see the problem. Actually, in here, I should not have used input string.length. I should use strarr.length. That is the problem. You see, but sometimes I can also make mistakes. Now let's run it. Now let's run it. It's running. It's running. So I can write my name is Shantanu. Yep, it's working absolutely fine, just like I expected it to be. So did you get the idea that how we were able to solve this problem? So are there any other ways also through which we can reverse a string? How many ways are there? May you please name that? There are many ways. You can use a stack as well. We could have also used a stack to reverse the string, but that would not have been the most appropriate way to do it because of extra space complexity. But this is like the easiest way to do it without using extra space. So did you guys understand this question? So please teach us basic topic first and then questions we are unable to understand. Oh, okay. So I'll tell you what's exactly happening in that case, Devyanshi. So Devyanshi, are you familiar with the concepts of string? What is a string? Do you understand that, Devyanshi? If you can also unmute yourself so that we can have a like face-to-face conversation, or maybe should I say word-to-word conversation? Because a string is basically like a sentence. So what I'm doing is that I'm changing a sentence into an array over here. Okay, I'm changing a sentence into an array over here, and then I'm reversing the array, and then I am adding all the elements of this reversed array into a string. Okay, now one small tip for the people who code in Java. This is not the right way of doing string manipulation. This is only for the people who code in Java. So what happens in Java, what happens in C++ also is that string, anything that you create as string, it is immutable in nature. So for example, when I write Shantanu, and suppose when I write my, and then I want to add name here, for example, here I have written output string is equal to empty string, and then consistently I'm trying to add something new to this string, right? So something like that is happening. So in this case, what is happening, because string is immutable, every time a new object of string is created rather than modifying the current string object. So something like this is happening inside Java. Something like this also happens in JavaScript, and something like this also happens in Python. I'm not sure if the same logic works with C++ as well. But this is the type of problem that happens with string type data structure. So what Java has, the solution that Java provides is that instead of using string, we can use something called a string builder. So if you use a string builder is equals to new string builder. Okay, so when you create a string builder is a class which is mutable in nature. So you can modify the same object rather than creating new object every time. So this is what we can do. I can just copy this code, add it over here, and uncomment these lines. Okay, and what I can do is that string builder is equals to, or I don't need to write is equals to, string builder dot append. So append is basically going to add something to the string builder. So here it will be strarr I dot append empty string. Okay, so this is a better way of doing it, and then I can just return string builder dot toString. This is actually a more better way of doing it, like what Java wants you to do. This is a better way of doing it. So the answer to this will also be the same. Let's just try and do it. Shouldn't we use string buffer? We can use string buffer also, but string buffer is more preferred because it is buffer is more preferred in the cases of multi-threading. Currently, we don't have a multi-threading environment, so it is better to use string builder. My name is Shantanu. Yep, that is the exact same output we get. This is not in place recursing algo. I'm not sure what you're trying to mean, Parth. What is the time complexity of it? The time complexity of it is n by 2 kind of. It's kind of n by 2, so it will be n only, O of n. It's going to be O of n. So is this clear, this question? It was an easy one. It was an easy one. So is it clear to you guys? Do you need any explanations, anything? If there's any question, if it's clear to you, I would really appreciate if you can just write a yes in the chat box. We'll have one more session tomorrow. So there I'll be explaining a little bit more complicated questions. Or you can just ask me topics. I will try to prepare a few questions on those topics so that it'll be nice for all of you. All right, so I can see a lot of you have this thing clear. That is great. Okay, so let me just think of a third question. What should be the third question? Let's try to solve this very popular question. Just explain line number 22. 22, this one. Is it, so Riddhi asks me, line number 22. So what here we are doing, Riddhi, is that we are trying to find out the middle index of the array. So the array's length is this, right? strarr.length. So in this case, the array's length is going to be 4. So because it's going to be 4, then mid will be is equal to 2. So what is the second element out of it? It is. So it is only going to iterate up to my and name, and then it will exchange all of it. So that is what it is happening. Okay, moving towards the next question. It is also a question from arrays. This one is a slightly popular question. So this is about merge to sorted arrays. Suppose if there are two arrays given to you and you want to merge them into a one single array, which is sorted in nature. So that is what we are going to do. So now the question is how we are going to do that. All right, let's think about it. First of all, let's take user input. So we will write PSVM. I really like writing PSVM because it makes me feel much better about coding in Java, because a lot of people complain, oh my God, don't code in Java. You have to write a lot of extra words. But I just write one word and I get all the syntax in front of me. All right, so moving ahead, I'll just write buffered reader, buffered reader is equals to new buffered reader system dot in. So another thing, all the people coming in from C++, do you still have an issue understanding the code that I'm writing? I think now it must be like, now I think you're able to understand this thing, that language isn't really the bigger player over here. It's all about the logic. It's all about the logic that we are writing in the second function, because the first function is a very Java specific code. System.in. Okay, so now that we have, let's take two integer arrays from the user. So let's take the first integer array. So it will be a string array always, string int, str arr1 is equals to br.readline, buffer.readline.trim. I'm using a trim function because so that if there are any extra spaces, like suppose if there are 5 spaces over here, so they will get removed. Okay, so br.read. What's wrong over here? Oh, I did not write a split. So this is my first array, and then this is going to be my second array, str arr2 is equals to buffer reader dot readline dot trim dot split. Yep. I'll just create a function to convert a string type array into an integer array for just for the sake of convenience. Public static integer array str arr2 int arr. So I'll just write a string type array, and I will use a for loop for, no, I'll create an integer array first. Arr is equals to, int arr is equals to new int arr dot length. Then I will write a for loop for int I is equals to 0, I less than arr dot length, and then I plus plus, and then I will just convert all the elements of the string array into an integer type variable, and will add it to integer array. Integer arr is equals to integer dot parseInt. So integer dot parseInt basically converts a string into an integer if it can. If it cannot, it will throw you a exception in Java. Okay, so string arri, right? So once that is done, I will just return int arr. So my first integer array is int arr1 will be string to array of str1, right? And my second will be int arr2 is equals to string to arr str, yeah, this one. So now that I'm assuming that both arr1 and arr2 are going to be sorted arrays, and I want to find out a third array which is like the combination of both of them. For example, if suppose my first array is something like this, 1, 6, 10, 15, and my second array is something like this. That is, let's say 2, 4, 8, 11. Then my third array, then my output should be something like this: 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 15. Is the question clear? Can we have a class for C coders? I mean, do you mean a class as in like object-oriented programming class, or like a proper class as in like we're a teacher-student class? Dipendra, a separate. Okay. We can, but I don't think I'll be able to take that class because I don't know C++ very well. I have never coded in C++, being very honest. So I don't think I'll be the right person for the same. All right. So this is the kind of output we expect. So is the question clear to you? And Dipendra, if you are having any issues, I mean, I don't exactly see the problem despite the fact that I'm coding in Java, because I mean, just saying it on a very general note, if you are someone who's extremely language specific, then that is not good. Like in my case, I do not write my code in C++, but when I see a C++ code, I am at least able to figure out what is happening. I'm at least able to figure out or understand what the user is trying to mean or what the user is trying to say. But the thing is that if you are not in that sort of a scenario at this present, then it can be a very big issue for you in the future. I understand I want to learn Java. If you want to learn Java, there are multiple ways in which you can learn. Maybe we can talk about it on LinkedIn. Maybe we can have a better conversation over there about the same. So I am assuming that, I mean, I totally understand you can have issues in trying to understand this part of the code, but this is something which is also similar in C++. All you have is you don't have a public and a static. And then everything is the same in C++ also. So I don't really understand what's the problem. All right, so now that we want to merge two sorted arrays, let's try to create a function for that. So public static int merge two sorted arrays. Okay, then we will take the first array ARR1 and then int ARR2. So this is our two arrays. Instead of writing like this, I want to write a better name. So I'll just write first array and then I'll write second. SECOND ARRAY, right? Second array. All right, so moving ahead, let's take the length of the first array. So length 1 is equals to first array dot length. Okay, now let's write int length 2 is equals to second array dot length. Okay, now we'll create a third array, that is the output array. So output array is equals to new int, that its size will be equal to the size of the first array plus the size of the second array, isn't it? That is how it should be considered like. Okay, so we are totally able to see that even in this case, like the first array size was 1, 2, 3, 4. In the second case, again 4. The answer in this, the output, there are 8 characters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is a very logical thing to say, that if there are two arrays which are sorted and you want to merge them, then all the elements from both the arrays will come and sit in the output array. So the length will always be equal to the sum of the both input arrays given to you. So that is why I've written this statement, line number 31, that is, we can have the output array's length as equal to first array plus second array's length. Okay, so now what we will do is that we will take the smaller array. We will take the smaller array out of first array and second array. We will first of all take the smaller array. And considering the smaller array, we will compare every element of the smaller array with the element of the array which is greater in size. After comparison, based on what number is coming first, we will add it to the output array. And after that, we will add all the preceding, all the extra numbers in the larger array into the output array. So if you're not able to understand it, not a problem. Just wait until I write the code. So let me just write a few variables for writing a loop. I is equals to 0, j is equals to 0. This is not how we write code in Java. J is equals to 0 and k is equals to 0. All right, so we have declared three variables I, j, and k all equal to 0. Now let me show you how will I do it. So while I is less than length 1 and j is less than length 2. What is this trying to say? This I variable will be running inside the length 1. That is the first array. The j is an iterator or an index. It points out to you, it points you the index in the second array. Okay, so that is what I am trying to assume over here. And what I'm trying to say is that I, that is that the index that I'm trying to work with inside the first array should never be greater than the length of the first array, which is very well understood. That is why I've written a loop like this. Now, every single time I will compare the ith element of first array with the jth element of the second array. in that case, given on which is a smaller element, I will add that to the output array. That is what I'm going to do. So I will show you if first array if first array dot I is smaller than second array j, then in that case, what we will do is that we will use the output arrays k is equal to first array ka I. Did you understand what I just did here? Yes, no, anyone? Right? So that is what we are trying to do here. So if the first, we are trying to loop inside both the arrays at the same time. Okay. If this condition is not true, then in that case, output array k will be equal to second arrays, second array j. Right. So I'm trying to add the smaller number into the array. Right. And once this is done, what I'm going to do is that I will iterate. Sorry, one thing I'm absolutely missing. I should here also be writing k plus plus, something like this, k plus plus, and then I plus plus. This is also very important because I have to change the index as well. So again, here k plus plus and I plus plus. Sorry, j plus plus. Sorry, in this case, j plus plus. Okay. So once the element is added over here, the index is now incrementing. Similarly, the case with I as well. The index is incrementing. Similarly, the case here as well, k is incrementing and j is also incrementing. Now the arrays are done. Now, like let's say that there are two arrays, one with the length 3 and the other with the length 4. Okay, so in this case, we have a smaller array and a larger array. So in this case, we are comparing up to only length 3 in both the case. Because once I becomes equal to 3, no matter if j is less than 4 or not, it does not matter because there's an AND condition. So first of all, we are trying to add those elements in the array, in the output array, given that both the arrays similar section. What I'm trying to say is that if both the arrays have different number of integers present, then the array which is smaller in size, that arrays, all the elements with the second array must be compared in order to be added to the output array. That is exactly what I have done. Now, because one array is greater, I have to add the trailing digits of that array into the output array as well. Because, for example, if there are two arrays, one array is of size 3 and the other array is of size, let's say 7, then in this case, both the arrays have 3 elements at least, right? So in both the arrays, I'm comparing the first 3 elements in both the scenarios, comparing them and adding always the smaller one into the output array. Once the 3 elements are compared in both the arrays, the larger array, which has size 7, there are 4 digits remaining. So those 4 digits also need to be added to the output array, right? That is now exactly what I'm going to do. So if in this case, if I is lesser than first array, so which is going to be length 1. If I is lesser than first array, then in that case, I is the greater, what am I going to say? In that case, I is the greater array. So what is happening here is that output array k is equals to first array I. And then I will write k plus plus and I plus plus. Similarly, while j is less than length 2, output array k is equal to second array j, and then again k plus plus and j plus plus. So out of both of these, only one of them will work. So out of both of these loops, only one of the loops will work because only either this condition will be true or this condition will be true. So that is how it's going to be like. And once this is done, I can just return the output array, return output array. This is the correct logic behind it. Now tell me, does anybody have any confusion over here? If yes, you can write in the Q&A. I have a few questions in the Q&A as well. Is it necessary to use extra space for obtaining result? It is not necessary to use, but in order, if you want to reduce the time complexity, it is. What if there are common numbers in both arrays, and can we initially add the string, then sort it? Add the string and sort it. What does that mean, Twaran? And even if there are common numbers, it will that scenario will also be handled according to the code that I have written. If you're using and then won't it go till the end of the larger array as well? No, it won't, because and will, if I had written or, then it would have gone to the larger end of the larger array, because it is a and condition. So both of these situations must be true, right? So one of the situations will fail after the smaller array is over. What if all the arrays of one array are larger than other? So in that case, this entire thing will be extremely biased. So in this case, only if this condition will always be true or this condition will always be true. What if we directly use or in place of then? What if we directly use or in place and then, is it work or not? I did not exactly understand what you're trying to say. Okay, what if we use or in place of then, or of and then, is it work or not? No, it won't work. It won't work. It will throw you it'll start throwing you errors. Why didn't you use or then? If I use or, if I use or, if I use or, then what will happen? If I use or like this, then there's going to be an issue. That issue is that sometime what will happen is that J will become, the larger array will start to be compared as well. So what will happen is that the smaller array's elements are over. I is now greater than the length of the length one. For example, if first array is smaller than second array, let me just write this. If first array dot length is less than second array dot length, LENGTH. If this is the scenario, then what can happen is that I will always have to be lesser than first array of dot length, right? But if we use a or operation, this condition can be true and this condition can be false, and it will still end up over here. So in this case, when I is greater than length one, so when this condition is false, what does it mean? This condition false means I is greater than is equal to length one. I is greater than is equal to length one. So if I is greater than is equal to length one, and if you are into this condition, then just imagine what will happen. Or even while at the time of evaluating this, it is going to throw you array index out of bounds exception, right? And which should never happen, because there cannot be an element of index 4 in the array whose length is only 3. That is the whole point of using an AND operation over here. Okay, I'll run this in a debug mode to show you what is exactly happening. Okay, let's try and run this in debug mode. In that case, is IntelliJ the best for Java, sir? In my opinion, yes, it is. Let's try to debug it. And I will take two arrays. Oops, the application is not properly running at this moment. Let me just try to do it. So stop the code for now. Let me just pass this. So I will receive an output array. Output array is equals to merge two sorted arrays, ARR1 and then ARR2. Okay, now I will just have to print this. So for printing this, what should I do? I'll just write a print function for int lm inside output array. This is just for the sake of printing it. So lm string builder dot append lm dot sout string builder. Yep. Now let's see what is happening. This is correct. Yeah, it is correct. All right. So let's see what is happening. Let me just run it in debug mode. So running it in debug mode will give you a better insight about how things are working. Okay, so it's in debug mode. Let's take the first array. Okay, accepting user input. You guys are the user. Tell me what should be the first array and the second array. So write in the chat box, what should be the first array and what should be the second array. Okay, I have one answer from Anmol. So 50, 20, no, it should be a sorted array, right? So it should be 20, 30, and 50. What should be the second array, Anmol? What should be the second array? Okay, fine. So 7, then 8, then 9, then 10, and then 11. Okay, fine. So these are my two arrays stopped over here. So you can see the first array is 20, 30, 50. And the second array is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, which is exactly what Anmol just mentioned. All right, so moving towards next line, you can see the lengths have been calculated. And this is my output array, which contains only zeros at now, because it has just been initialized. Now let's see what is happening over here. So now length 1 is equals to how much? Length 1 is equals to 3 and length 2 is equals to 5. Now let's see what is exactly happening here. So it will first come over here and both the conditions are true because I and j are both equal to 0. So it will now check. So what is the first array's element at I? So i's value currently is equal to 0. So the first element is 20. And here the second array's first element is how much is equals to 7. So in this case, this condition is false, right? The if condition is false. Isn't that right? Yes, no, anyone? Is this if condition true or false? It's a false condition. So it will directly come to the output array over here. So I'll go to step over. It has come now here. So you can see the first element in this output array will be equal to 7. Yep, you can see the first element in the output array is now equal to 7. And k's value has increased by 1 and j's value is also increased by 1. Okay, so again, now we are iterating over the, again, in this while loop. So i's value has not changed. I is still equal to 0 and j is now equal to 1 and k is also now equal to 1. So k is basically giving us that idea that what is the index where the new element in the output array is supposed to be added. So now it is going to compare 20 with the second element in this array. So it is going to compare 20 and 8 now. So again, this condition is going to be false and it is again going to come to the else condition, right? And you can see the second element in the output array is now 8. Again, k will be added, j will be added. Now it has come to this condition again. So now it is going to check whether 20 is greater than 9 or not. So again, it's going to check like that. And now you can see 9 is the third element. So similarly, this entire array will be added just the way it is. So let's just check it. 10 has been added, then now 11 has been added, and now you will see that 20 will be added. But here you can see that this condition has now become false. So this loop will stop executing and it will have to come over here. Yep, now it has come over here. Now you will see all the remaining elements of the first array will be added to this output array. So 20 was added, 30 was added, and now 50 is added. Whereas this while loop will not run because this condition is false. And we output the array, then it will get back the code to this place. Yep, now it is over here. You can see the output array as this, and this is exactly what we wanted. So if we get over here, this is the string that will be printed, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 20, 30, 50. And once we print it, this is what we get. We have merged two sorted arrays into one single array. Was the question clear, the way it was executed? And I think with debug mode, it would have been more easier for you to understand how this question was coded. So basically it is searching for a space, and when space is found, it is placing the word at +1. The previous question, which we are reversing the string, yes, kind of something like that. It is clear, but what about unsorted? Then how do we do that? And can you please cover lexicographical and collapsing interval merging solution? Merging question, collapsing interval merging question. Can you provide me a question with the topics that you're saying, Anmol? That will help me understand your question better. And if both the arrays are unsorted, then we can't merge it into a sorted array without sorting them. So we have to sort them first. Can we merge and then sort? Yes, we can. We can do that, but that's not the question. That's not the question. That's not the question. If you merge and then sort, it is going to be n log n solution. If you just add and so this is a O of n solution. This is a O of n solution. So this is a more optimized and a better way to solve it. And these were the 3 questions that I had for today. Probably I'll talk about more questions. I have a few questions on trees as well, which is going to be absolutely very, very interesting. So people who love Java, you guys are going to have a great time with me, but that's not just for people with Java. It's also for people with other languages, but it's going to be a little bit object-oriented programming as well. So you will love to see that part of the question tomorrow, maybe. So this was it from my side. If you have any questions, please ask. Otherwise, I think we're good to close for today. Would you take well-formed parentheses checker for tomorrow? Okay, so you want me to check using Java code or any languages code to see if parentheses are balanced? Is that what you're talking about, Mohammed? Yes, okay, fine. I'll add that question as well. We can just use a stack for the same. All right, we'll do that. Thanks for telling me. I have it noted. Any more questions? Any more queries? I hope you didn't have an issue with me coding in Java. So has it been an issue with coding in Java? I want to ask you people, was it an issue if I coded in Java? Because probably it shouldn't have been, because it is just logic and the syntax is not very different from C++. It's not like a Martian language. It's very similar. The only things that are different probably you would have seen is this thing, the concept of classes and the use of this static keyword, this throws IO exception type of these kind of are the only new things. Apart from it, all of the things are same. This is how you write code in C++ as well. Isn't that the case? C++ people, isn't that right about what I'm saying? Anyone from C++? Yep. Thanks, Ankush. Thanks, Binal. That is how it is like. We must always focus on understanding the logic first. I have studied Java, but when I was doing DSA in my college life, I used to see, of course, I also got stuck into many solutions, and I would see in the internet solutions being coded in C++. So that does not stop me from understanding the solution despite being in a different language, because I was able to get the concept. So for anyone who thinks like if the code is not in their language, then it's a problem for them, I think it's not a problem for you. I mean, the thing is that you should change that mindset, because sticking to one language can be really problematic for you in the future. Apart from understanding, accepting input, it wasn't much of an issue. Absolutely. That's the whole deal about it. If you ask a person from Python to understand C out, probably they will never be able to understand it, because SDD diff works differently in every language. So yeah, that was it from my end. Any more questions? Any concerns? Yeah, C++ coder can easily understand the algo used in Java. Absolutely. Absolutely. C++ and Java are very much like similar type of languages, up to an extent. But when it comes to DSA, all of that extent is covered.